So the Eagles could be looking to draft two players in the second round, and they got the perfect way to execute it. Meanwhile, this is now the second time I heard the ridiculous take of the Eagles drafting the quarterback early. So much to break down, including the Penn State pass rusher that we brought in on a top 30 visit. Plus, the safety being linked to the Eagles would fit perfect, and Jason Kelce calls out the anonymous sources and hits it on the head. What is going on, everybody? I go by Philly Mike, and it's the Philly Talk Podcast. If you rock with our birds, do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on that notification bell so you don't miss the videos. So we are literally 2 weeks away from the 2026 NFL Draft, and the Eagles are coming into it with 9 total picks, 4 in the top 98. And make no mistake about it, Howie Roseman will be aggressive, not necessarily saying early in the draft, which he could, but there hasn't been a draft in the last 5 years where Howie Roseman didn't make at least one or two trades. Yesterday in the live stream, we talked a little about the edge rusher position in terms of how important it is in his upcoming draft. Yes, we went out and got Arnold Ebiketie from the Falcons and JTS, Joe Tyron Shinoka, I can't really pronounce his name, who I think were pretty good pickups. Arnold Ebiketie, based off the money given to him, you can tell the Eagles are expecting more out of him than they did out of Azeez Ojulari and Joshua Uche. Now, JTS is one of them signings where he was a former first-round pick in 2021, hasn't lived up to it. We're going to pair him with Vic Fangio and see if we can get something out of him. If not, it was a cheap one-year deal. With that being said, as for top 30 visits, the Eagles have brought in Penn State pass rusher Denny Dennis Sutton, who is a projected day 2 pick. Perhaps that's where the Eagles seek to add depth to the pass rusher spot, bolstering the rotation with Smith, Hunt, and Ebiketie, who I think you can classify as the top 3 on the roster as of now. The Penn State pass rusher is only 22 years old. Last year, played 13 games, had 26 solo tackles, 16 assisted, so 42 combined tackles, 12 tackles for loss, 8.5 sacks, 3 passes defended, and 3 forced fumbles. When you watch this kid play, you can tell the motor is there, and he treats every down the same, whether it's a pass rush rep and or a run stop rep. The dude is really low-key and underrated tackler. You can tell the 12 tackles for loss. The year prior, he had 8.5 sacks as well, with 13 tackles for loss. So the consistency in which he plays with is there. And of course, you're pairing him with Vic Fangio, who got big things out of Jalen Hunt, who was a total unknown. And my whole thing is, if the Eagles are bringing him in on a top 30 visit, I believe Vic Fangio is a reason why. Like I said, 2 weeks into the NFL draft, so we will be breaking down all the top 30 visits that I haven't because of all the drama around the Eagles and any new ones. But I'm telling you right here, right now, safety, tight end, maybe even wide receiver, if you do believe that A.J. Brown will eventually be traded, could all be options for the Eagles. But we all know Howie Roseman and the Eagles love their trenches. We're talking about edge rusher in this video, but make no mistake about it, once again, the Eagles will be looking at the offensive line. And depending who's there in the first round, that could obviously be the pick. Although Thomas R. Peterson tweeted yesterday that Dane Brugler has the Eagles selecting Toledo safety Emmanuel McNeil Warren in his annual The Beast draft article. Now, the first thing people will say is Howie Roseman doesn't draft safeties in the first round. Well, he used to not draft cornerbacks and linebackers in the first round, and that was a change he made throughout the last couple years. So never say never. That definitely is a glaring hole on the Eagles roster. And once upon a time, Toledo was not a place to get talented players, but Quinyon Mitchell changed the game 100%, balling at Toledo and quickly becoming a top corner in the National Football League. But back to the 22-year-old Toledo safety. Last year, he played 13 games, had 36 solo tackles, 41 assisted, 77 combined, 5.5 tackles for loss, a half a sack, 2 INTs, one he took to the crib, 5 passes defended, two fumble recoveries, and three forced fumbles. Again, the drawback is Toledo's a small school, but that doesn't stop you watching the talent on the field. Now, this kid is known more for his box safety abilities. I'm talking about see ball, get ball. He doesn't miss tackles, which I think will be good pairing him with Andrew Makuba. But whenever he did have to play high safety and or high point of ball, he went up like he was the receiver. I'm talking 50-50 balls. So there's definitely the upside and the versatility of him being able to roam around as well. But the physical traits are there, which I absolutely love for a Philadelphia Eagles defense. Let's not forget him playing with Quinion at Toledo will up their chemistry. We saw the Georgia Bulldog chemistry take place multiple times throughout the last couple of seasons. I'm not saying let's go get every Toledo player because, they're not a big name college, but this is another guy that I absolutely think can play at the NFL level. Now, before we talk about people literally saying the Eagles using their first round pick on a quarterback, huh? Meanwhile, because this quarterback draft is what it is, the Eagles can find herself with an extra second round pick. And Jason Kelsey calls out where these anonymous Eagle slash Jalen sources came from, and he hit it on the head. But first, let's hear a word from our sponsor. No matter what sports you are watching, there's no better way to get more excited than with Prize Picks, where it feels good to be right. Prize Picks is daily fantasy made simple. You just pick more or less on your favorite players' projection and build lineups in a few taps. Whether it's football, basketball, or another sport you enjoy watching, Prize Picks gives you a fun way to stay locked in while you watch every play. And to get you started, they are hooking you up with $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup when you use code HMA. I love the social feed feature that they have on Prize Picks where you can share lineups with your friends as long as you're following each other. Share, copy, pick winners together, avoid certain players together. That is absolutely game changing. So, what are you waiting for? Download the Prize Picks app today and use code HMA to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code HMA to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. Back to the Eagles, real quick. Let's take a look at the Athletic Eagles 2026 mock draft. You let me know what you think. This is via Zach Berman with the help from the Beast. Caleb Lomu, offensive tackle in round one, pick 23. Antonio Williams, wide receiver in round two, pick 54. Eli Stowers, tight end, round three, pick 68. Markel Bell, offensive tackle, round four, pick 98. LT Overton, edge rusher, round four, pick 114. Takario Davis, cornerback, round four, pick 137. Michael Taffy, safety, round five, pick 153. Jeff Caldwell, wide receiver, round five, pick 178. And last but not least, Kendall Daniels, linebacker, round six, pick 197. Now, of course, this athletic draft from Zach Berman had no trades because you never really know when and where how he's going to do it. But I think it hit all the essentials. Again, not the sexy draft going offensive line, especially if he sits behind Lane. But the Eagles love getting the replacement before the veteran leaves. We saw that with Cam Jurgens. We saw that multiple places, tight end as well. So I think they hit the spots. I got to do more due diligence on some of them players because, of course, I'm doing all my cramming in this last 2 weeks, especially with all the drama going on with the Eagles. But we will talk something about the draft every single day, whether there's different reports. Even if the Eagles signed a player, we'll have draft coverage throughout the rest of these episodes, and we will be live for the draft. So definitely get your notifications hit. As for a trade that could help us in the draft, according to ESPN, Tim McManus, interest in McKee hasn't disappeared. In fact, it may resurface again as the draft approaches. That alone isn't surprising. McKee has done what teams want to see from a developmental quarterback. He's been efficient, poised, and productive in his limited opportunities. We all know the Eagles signed Andy Dalton, and I ain't going to be happy if we have to see Andy Dalton or Tanner McKee. That means Jalen Hurts is injured. And although I like Tanner McKee, I want QB1 on the field. That being said, this is the last year of Tanner McKee's deal. And there were interests from the Jets and another team, I can't remember off the top of my head, in trading a second round pick for Tanner McKee. So, with the draft being quarterback list, I'm talking about Mendoza and Ty Simpson being the only two big names, and Ty Simpson fell off the second half at Alabama. A team can turn to the Eagles and be like, hey, you want to get back in the second round of the draft? And we go ahead and take Tanner McKee off your hands, whether he's on a team that's ready to start him and or pay him as the backup. You know, teams do weird things. Maybe they got a prove it guy going and Tanner McKee is the backup plan. I see Tanner McKee as a starter on some team in the NFL. All that being said, I would love to keep Tanner McKee this year. But if you're offering a second round pick in this draft where we already have four picks in the top 98, I think the Eagles got to jump on that and make their team deeper, better, and stronger. Speaking about the quarterback drama in Philly and the fact that this draft ain't deep, someone on WIP literally talked about the Eagles drafting Ty Simpson with the 23rd overall pick. And then a draft analyst had this to say: despite the fact that this draft class is widely viewed as a one quarterback class, that didn't stop NFL media analyst Rhett Lewis, who the heck are you, from projecting that the Eagles make a major splash and a big surprise with their selection at number 23 overall, tabbing Alabama quarterback Ty Simpson. Bro, ain't no way. Now you could say, well, they did that to Carson Wentz, drafting Jalen Hurts in the second. That's a second round pick. If you were to get Ty Simpson in the first round pick, it will be the craziest and dumbest move made, not just by Howie Roseman, by all 32 teams this offseason. This guy is way too smart to do something like that. Again, Jalen Hurts drama, whether it's pushed by the Eagles, whether it's pushed by sources who have been fired, we know how he can play when he's pushed, when he's properly coached. Simple and plain. So I think the Eagles are ready to rock out with this new Sean Mannion and Jalen Hurts squad. There's going to be a lot of different stuff. The stuff that people swear Jalen can't do or don't want to do will be done in this offense. So I can't wait to see him prove everyone wrong. Kelce was asked by Pat McAfee about all the drama, and he hit it on the nose.
It's quite a bit right now. I know there's a story about Jalen that came out earlier, either this week or last week. And I think that, my overall thing is, especially with Jalen, like what quarterback doesn't want to run their stuff? This has kind of been a semblance of things that have been coming out over multiple years. But all of a sudden now it's reached to this point where there's however many sources in there. And I think it's very coincidental that it comes when the season and everything don't go the way they want and people are getting fired. And the reality is sometimes these things that are weaknesses when you're losing, sometimes people view them as strengths when you're winning. And I think that kid's been through a lot. He's been through a lot of change. And I think he's going to be through a lot of change this year. Everybody talks about the offensive coordinators changing over. There's going to be a drastically different offense in Philadelphia. It's going to be more in the center. It's going to be more run and play action on second down. It's going to be more motions. So this is a big year for him. And at the end of the day, I think they have great players there. I think they have a lot of good leadership in that building. And I think that when you combine them, Vic Fangio, I feel pretty confident about the Eagles this coming season. So I think the drama is going to start going the other direction at some point.
Simply put, the Eagles lost. It didn't look good. Jalen Hurts still there. People got fired, and the people who got fired are trying to clear their name. That's what transpired. The crazy thing is, the Eagles won a Super Bowl in 2024 with Kellen Moore there. We're hearing now that there was friction between Jalen and Kellen a little bit. Why wasn't that reported after the Super Bowl? They could have clearly said, although the Eagles won a Super Bowl, reports say there's friction in the locker room between Kellen and Jalen. That wasn't sourced because Kevin Patulu, who was there, who might have heard a little bit of it, finally told him once he got fired. I want a little friction. I want pushback between my OC and my quarterback. This is why you should do that. Well, show me, explain why. Like, if you just say yes, sir, right? Kevin Patullo's a pushover. Jalen Hurts maybe took advantage of that. Bad coach. And if my coach is not making Jalen Hurts question things and see things differently, then he's not doing his job. But it's funny how, even when we were winning, it only came out when we were losing. Who was there to even see maybe a little friction between Kellen and Jalen Hurts? Kevin Patullo. So you can tell where the sources are coming from. Maybe Nick's involved because they were BFFs. But at the end of the day, as Kelce said, the offense is going to be ran different. This stuff only comes out when people get fired, and we're going to see what transpires in 2026. With all that being said, let me know your thoughts on the athletic mock draft, the two draft candidates we talked about, Tanner McKee, Jalen Hurts, Kelce, all that stuff. Y'all know y'all football. Let me know about that. And if you got any draft people you want me to look at, because y'all know y'all stuff on that too. Go sign up for Prize Picks. I love you to death. Philly Strong in the chat. Like, subscribe, and I'll catch you on the next one. We out.